What's up, everybody? Sorry, had technical difficulties and then nature called and all that stuff. So let's try this again. Take two. Me. Take two. Obviously, the Sean Murphy news is unfortunate. Cracked rib with the hit by pitch on Friday. 95 just straight to the ribs. And obviously, a lot of people have had opinions and things of that nature. But the reality is, it sucks for Sean Murphy trying to get the bad taste of 2024 out of his mouth. And regardless of his offensive stats, he's one of the best offensive catchers or all around catchers in baseball. Game calling and pitch calling and blocking and every aspect. And I think that Sean Murphy doesn't get enough credit for the stats you don't see. The stuff that just doesn't show up in the box score is what Sean Murphy does. And obviously, the offensive production is in there. It just didn't happen last year due to the oblique injury and just not being able to get out of the blocks well. But there are several games in there where he was the reason we won the game and keeping our pitchers calm and in the jams they got into. He had a 185 staff ERA when he was out there, and everybody else had a 393. So that'll tell you how important Sean Murphy is to the Braves. It does open up things for Drake Baldwin, who's had a fantastic spring behind and at the plate. His strike zone awareness is a lot further along than I expected as well. Like, I think he's the full package, and I thought it was going to be hard for the Braves to keep him down in the minors even before the Sean Murphy injury. And after today, with Chris Sale throwing 4 scoreless innings, 4 strikeouts, 2 base runners, no hits, and Chris Sale relies heavily on his catchers because he doesn't call the pitches, and putting that on Drake Baldwin and seeing how successful that was and the comments of Chris Sale afterwards definitely gives Drake the vote of confidence. And I think it gives me the warm and fuzzies that we finally get to see the development of the Braves catchers, because obviously we've chose to use our top prospects to get Matt Olson and William Contreras, and obviously people have mixed feelings on the William Contreras. I think it's still a win-win for both sides, even despite Sean Murphy's difficulties the last year plus. So I'm really, really excited. And even Chadwick Tromp, you know what you're going to get. He loves the fastball, kind of a Kurt Suzuki. Can't sneak a fastball by him. And so if we don't want to start Drake Baldwin's clock right away, even though we've shown that we could care less about the service time and how that is manipulated, if Drake Baldwin is the best option for us to win games and for our pitching staff, I think that's going to happen. It's just going to depend. But obviously, you still got Curt Casali, veteran, and Sandy Leon, veteran as well. So there's options there. Obviously, you definitely don't want to see Sean Murphy hurt. but at least there's quality options behind the dish, for sure. And it's something we can withstand. Just don't want any more of it. But I think it's a great opportunity, for sure. And our staff ERA in spring training, I know numbers don't mean a lot, but it's actually nice to see that our staff ERA is 2.23, just behind the Yankees, because there's so many new pieces and so many unknowns that it's nice to see, especially with like Grant Holmes and Ian Anderson having 6 no-hit innings the other day against the Marlins. Spencer Schwellenbach looking absolutely dominant as ever. And Chris Sale doing what Chris Sale's done. I mean, you could pretty much put Chris Sale and Spencer in bubble wrap. I think I'm good. We don't need to see them anymore. They're ready. They're ready to go. So that is quality there. I think Bryce Elder and Ian Anderson feel like the same person, where they struggle, like when they start struggling, and kind of can go haywire on them. So it's not necessarily that I'm totally warm and fuzzy about the back end, but I'm not. They've made me feel a little bit better, even though the walks and the deep counts make me a little nervy. But with Spencer Strider slated to come back maybe late April, early May, you might not have to worry about that as much. And then you probably put Grant Holmes in the Swiss Army knife role that he was in the bullpen, or Ian Anderson, although I don't know how Ian Anderson's stuff would play in the bullpen necessarily, just because I haven't seen it. But we'll see on that. But I think the pitching staff is in a better spot than I think any of us could have anticipated. Plus, with the box of chocolates options with the bullpen and a lot of veterans, no huge names, but names that people know, like Buck Farmer. He had a rough one 2 days ago against yesterday against the Rays. But he's shown some really good strikeout stuff, and De Los Santos has as well. Perdomo's been very impressive. Pilar's been a little bit more of a mixed bag, the Rule 5 pick that we got from the Marlins. So I don't know if that will that'll work, but his stuff and his movement is definitely nasty for sure. So I like some of the things, but just there's a little bit of the deep count syndrome with like AJ Smith-Shawver, Ian Anderson, and Pilar have kind of just nibbled around a little too much, I know you're trying to work on things and stuff like that, but when you're unsure about a roster spot, I think it's more important to be as efficient as possible, and I know it's easier said than done, but like the Chris Sale approach of he really hasn't gotten too far behind his guys. He's just getting quick outs, quick results. And I think if Ian Anderson and Bryce Elder and Pilar can reach that step where when they're struggling, they can find a way to keep us in the ball game and keep us close. And I think that's the next step for those guys, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how the roster plays out that way. for sure. I think Jake Diekman has really, really impressed. And I think he's solidified one of those left-handed back end of the rotation of the bullpen spots. He's veteran. He's been through the wars and everything. You just hope the walk bug doesn't bite him when the bell rings, kind of thing, because that's been his bugaboo throughout his career is the walk bug, but it really hasn't bit him too much this spring, so that is nice. Adding Hector Neris, the old Astro Philly closer, had a 4.10 ERA and 64 strikeouts and 28 walks last year. The velo drop is interesting and probably not a great thing, and the advanced metrics tell you that he got a little lucky when he was really good in 2023, so you don't know what you're going to get there, but he's been through everything. He's been through closing situations so many times, and pressure pack situations, and I don't know that necessarily we found that. The Joe Jimenez, Daysville Hernandez had a really good outing the other day. 2 strikeouts, zeros, but he had a rough one to start spring. But again, I don't know how the teams necessarily judge things. Dylan Covey's been really good. And all of these guys, not necessarily household names, not the all-stars that jump off the page, but a staff ERA of 2.23, even in spring training, that kind of jumps off the page given that there are so many unknowns. Aaron Bummer's been really solid in his 2 outings, Pierce Johnson as well. I think he only had 1, but still it's a nice Raisel Iglesias had 1 the other day. Couple of days ago against the Yankees. I think it's really awesome, and Jurickson Profar has fit in like a glove with the Braves. Couple of doubles, couple of them could have been homers, and the outfield assists, the defense, the play discipline. I didn't even think it was as good as it is, so that's nice to see. Ozzy's been scratchy a little bit this spring, got a couple of singles, but a lot of strikeouts so far, just can't really find it yet. Riley, it looks like he's starting to lock in a couple of singles, a homer the other day when he went back-to-back with Matt. So that is good. I think the utility infield spot is a little up in the air because Nick Allen has had some. I think he's 5 for 14. Christian Cairo, the son of Miguel Cairo, had a couple hits yesterday, including a game time double. And he's another Rule 5 draft guy where if he has to make our roster and stay on for a certain period of time for him to still be in our organization, I think he brings a lot. Eli White brings a lot as well, and he's looked pretty solid, very serviceable in the infield with that notion. So I think I was really skeptical with our bench coming in, but the way it's kind of started to play out in spring training, De La Cruz, I know he went 0 for 2 today, but he's had some really good at-bats. Jared Kelenic has absolutely tore the cover off the baseball in terms of extra base hit and a little bit more walks and deeper counts, less antsy. So that is perfect. There's been a lot of really, really surprisingly good things. So I think our bench will be less of a concern based on how. And again, I know you don't put too much stock in spring training, but spring training does matter. Even though a lot of players say it doesn't, and it doesn't in the grand scheme of things, but if you're trying to make a roster, it does. And especially if you have no options, you're at least trying to put some good stuff on tape for other teams to take a shot with you, even if you don't make the club. Because guys like Ian Anderson, Grant Holmes, they don't have options. So it'll be likely that they start the season with the Braves because they seem too valuable. Same with Nick Allen, but Cairo and Pilar are on Rule 5. So if they don't make the team, we have to offer them back to Cleveland and Miami respectively. So you've got to be, and Nick Allen doesn't have any options. Eli White doesn't have any options. So I think that's also why the Braves have been very aggressive when it comes to the roster cuts. I think we're already down to 49 with the addition of Hector Neris on the non-roster invite deal. So because they realize and understand the contractual obligations, some of the veterans, you have to let them know earlier so they can see if they can get other opportunities. But you need to see the battles and things of that nature. So I think that's why we've been super aggressive with it, and maybe we just know what we need to see as well. That's another thing. Chasen Shreve had a pretty good spring, but he's already been sent down. But I think that's a really good depth piece to have in the minors. So that's really good. I think it's been obviously the results don't matter, but it's been really nice to see Jared Kelnick settle in, the guys in the back end of the bullpen. Although I don't really feel that we found the Joe Jimenez replacement, but if we do it by committee, it might work. But obviously, Joe is clutch and key, and him not having him is a big blow. And I don't know if we'll make the decision to continue to add, or if somebody will take it by the horns, and make it work. I'm not sure. But a 2.23 staff ERA, spring training or not, makes it easier, but also harder to make the decisions, and that's always a good thing in spring training, because if you got a lot of guys struggling, it's like picking from the worst, and you don't want to do that. But with guys competing and battling and putting up good innings and good at bats, giving the Braves a lot to think about, and I think that's the best thing possible for everything. And obviously avoiding any more critical injuries is going to be nice, because obviously the New York teams are dealing with it, with the Quintana and Sean Manaea and Luis Gil having the lat injury, and Giancarlo Stanton starting the IL this season on the IL with his elbow injuries, and Adolis Garcia missing some time with the oblique injury, things of that nature. And those are very finicky injuries where you just never know. I think Corbin Carroll is dealing with a back injury as well. So hopefully we can avoid any other significant injuries coming out of camp, because we all, I think, have bad flashbacks from last year and just how all that played out. But I think also coming into a new year, like just kind of not, I mean, I expect us to be a good team, but given everything that happened last year, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And just kind of having the expectations of, well, we'll see what happens, kind of is my best approach Because after last year, you just never know. I mean, people got injured when they were just like people have gotten injured when they were just walking around and taking a simple ground ball, and everything, it looked fine, then it wasn't fine, that kind of thing. You just kind of, that's why I'm approaching this year, especially with the way free agency went, and the approach. I don't think it was necessarily intentional of dropping the payroll as much as we have, because the Hoffman deal fell through, and then the Tanner Scott deal that didn't happen. We don't know what the numbers were there. So I don't think we're necessarily trying to cut payroll. It's how it's happened, and it's how the market was, and things of that nature. I mean, you got guys like Buck Farmer and Matt Moore and a lot of other guys like Hector Neris, David Robinson still not signed anywhere. Those guys are a lot of guys. Adam Ottavino taking a non-roster invitee deal. That's just not normal. But the way the price tags are and the veteran reality of it all, I think that's like changed the offseason outlook for a lot of teams, and you have to pivot when it doesn't go your way. And typically we don't have that issue, like deals falling through due to medicals, and deals falling through because the guy got an insane offer at the last minute, that kind of thing. We haven't really had to deal with that in the Alex Anthopoulos era, so I think that's a part of the idea. And obviously, a lot of things can still change, especially with the guys that don't have options. There could be trades, there could be a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces, but you obviously have to give them a shot so far, because Ian Anderson, third overall pick, was amazing. Has been amazing in the playoffs prior to his injury, and it's just you can't just necessarily pull the plug on guys like that, because they're just really valuable. Grant Holmes doing everything in his power to just get outs and stay on the big league roster, and being what he was, how important he was. You just can't let those guys go for nothing, because those guys don't come around every single day, where you have a lot of Swiss Army knife guys in the bullpen, and they can start and swing guys like that. So guys with no options have kind of clouded the roster, so to speak, making the decisions tougher and even more important. And I think the Braves have done a fantastic job of that, and realizing the process of everything. That you get a guy like Jurickson Profar, and he feels like he fits like a glove with the personalities, with the strong Curacao connection, with everything that he's brought this spring so far. And like I said, spring obviously isn't the end all be all, but when you see so much good and so much things you can build on, it matters. It matters big time. And I know a lot of big leaguers and a lot of former big leaguers, when you have when you're guaranteed a spot on the roster, then you can work on things, and your results don't matter. But for a lot of guys, the results still matter. The results still matter, because not only is the team that you're on currently watching you, but everybody else is. So they do matter to an extent. That's why I don't necessarily like the saying that spring training doesn't matter at all, because it does to an extent. I get it. If you're a veteran and you know you're going to be on the team, a rough spring should be like water off a duck's back. But when you're not, when it's not, and when you're not, that's a different story. And obviously, I know in Arizona, Arizona spring training is a little different because of the air and what it does to the baseball. And so I'm sure it's pretty hard to judge good, bad, weather aided stuff, stats wise, pitching wise out in Arizona. And I don't know how you discern that, but they've done it for years. So I'm not saying nobody can do it, but it's just an interesting process and an interesting idea. And I think the Braves have done a fantastic job of finding, and who knows how it's going to work out in the regular season, but I'm really excited. And the Braves obviously turn over every rock and look at every important stat to them and just feel who is the perfect fit for the roster as it stands. And it's just important to remember that and realize that, and as you're watching things, and hopefully no more injuries, none of that. But because we had to rebuild our AAA and AA, and we have a little bit more options, and we have a little bit more experience of just trying to tape and glue a roster together via, and not that you want to do that, but having more experience with it and understanding that things happen and having backup plans and the depth and things of that nature is really nice. A really nice caveat, and I do appreciate that. And I was hoping for a guy like Jose Quintana, but he got a 1 year $4.25 deal with the Milwaukee Brewers, so that's good for him. But I am a little bit surprised that we haven't gone a veteran starter route, because we always typically do. But we obviously like what we're seeing, and Ronaldo Lopez has been solid this spring. Chris Sale doing Chris Sale things. Spencer Schwellenbach's been one of the more dominant pitchers I've seen in spring training. Just 1, 2, 3, easy breezy. Blink, you might miss it, that type of thing. So that's nice. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, spring has been really good for the Braves so far, and hopefully it continues that way outside of the Sean Murphy injury. But I think there's still a lot of excitement there. Plus, it's not a hand, it's not an oblique. It's still painful, and it still sucks that he'll be out 4 to 6. But with the depth and the excitement of Drake Baldwin, I think we can weather that position more than any other. So that is very important and very very intriguing, so to speak. So, and I think there's so many veterans in terms of experience, and maybe not with the Braves or whatnot, but they understand how everything works, how to carry themselves, and understand the process, that that it's not always gonna work out swimmingly necessarily, but as long as you keep us in the ball game and give us a chance to win, that's what you want, especially at the beginning of the season with the 4 and 5 starters. And obviously, we're going to get a big test starting with the Dodgers and Padres out west. But it'll be a good measuring stick early on, and if we're able to kind of get off to a good start and just stick with our processes. And there's a lot of time still left in spring training, so there's a lot of potential moves to be made with all of 2-3 more weeks to go, and a lot of moving parts and a lot of things of that nature. But with what the pitching staff and has done so far, Rick Kranitz is amazing. It doesn't really matter who he gets. It turns into some magic dust so far, and you got to appreciate that. And Tim Hires, I haven't heard from him yet, but I think the process is working for guys like Jared Kelnick and De La Cruz. Ozzie hasn't clicked yet, but sometimes you have a terrible spring and then you come out firing. But we'll see for Ozzie. But he hasn't been great, but he hasn't been terrible either. And the defense has been really solid fundamentally for the most part. Error here or there, which is great. The fundamentals, the clean baseball games for the most part are there too. It's not sloppy. It's not Chicago White Soxy. It's just Atlanta Braves baseball through and through. Even through spring training, it's doing it the right way. And the social videos and the guys having fun and all of that all matters too. And I think our clubhouse is absolutely fine. I know we've had a lot of exits lately, but I think it is made stronger by what happened last year and just the reality of the baseball season and what it can do and what it is. And the guys that are in there really care and love for each other. And having Ronald and Strider back very, very soon, the first week of May possibly, that gives you the warm and fuzzies, the depth. And all of that really, really matters and is really, really important. And I think that's all I have. As always, go Braves, champions forever. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, helps out a lot. Thanks, guys. I know I had technical difficulties, so this is the second one. So if you didn't catch it, it'll be on my socials. But thanks, guys.